Yes, that is.
Libraries and responses.
Thanks, great. So this is part of our Broadband from Space series, focusing on, well, how to get broadband from outer space as opposed to terrestrial networks where nearly all of us get our internet access. We've had a special emphasis on this because the arrival of low Earth orbit satellites, and that's what we're going to be talking about today for the most part. But it's not the only satellite system or broadband from space system. There's also the traditional geostationary satellites. We'll get into those in another session, but today we're going to mostly focus on low Earth orbit. My name is Don Means. We are the Gigabit Libraries Network, open consortium, collaboration of libraries doing interesting things with technology, mostly related to communications, but not only. Our host is the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, AfLIA, based in The Hague. And our series sponsor is the Internet Society, which of course we're going to have good representation today related to the Internet Society. Thank you very much. Our media sponsor is Broadband Breakfast. So this is a quote from Larry, one of our speakers today. We'll see shared accounts in government, commercial, telecenters, Wi-Fi hotspots. This gets to the heart of our reason related to communications, is that libraries and other kinds of hubs, community centers, offer a response to the multiple challenges to adoption. Nkem, Verengai, and Larry will give us news today. Our Broadband from Space series has a focus today on into Africa. It's a little play on out of Africa, but now after all this time, technology that has come from humans who emerged from Africa is going back into Africa, and we think it may make a difference in how connectivity happens there. So these are the different aspects of this particular thread, is how to expand access, enhance services, especially public services, and also to increase resilience against disasters, which is more and more of our normal environment these days as the climate warms and increases severity and frequency of extreme weather events. Classically, to help close the global digital divide, where we have nearly 3 billion people who are offline and waiting for service, waiting for the infrastructure to arrive, which it just tends to not, because of the classic infrastructure model, which says the farther you are away from the core of any network, the more expensive it is to deliver services. And as you get further out, there are fewer people, making it more expensive per person, per household, and also those people tend to have less money. So this is a disincentive to actually extend infrastructure. It's classic. But the basic principle has been that once a service has been deemed as a basic service, essential service, then everyone should have affordable access to it. Telephone, electricity, it's not true everywhere, but that's the principle of universal service. And how this may affect the wider telecom ecosystem is also a fascinating aspect of it. We've identified these main barriers to adoption. This is kind of an arbitrary taxonomy on this particular topic, but availability is certainly there, affordability and usability. If it's not available, then the other two really are moot questions. And then once it is, then is it affordable? This is one of the topics we're going to get to today. And then usability is really a catchphrase for a whole bunch of different issues related to devices. Why do I care? What's it good for? How do I use it? And so on. So this is our take on LEO, is that it fills the availability gap in this classic barrier. But is it affordable? Well, if you introduce a library or a community hub, then they can address both the affordability and the usability questions, because that's where people can go to get devices, access, support, training, and the rest of it. So just between that technology, low Earth orbit satellites, and these facilities, you have basically solved or addressed, if not entirely, barriers to adoption. I mean, everybody would like to have, fiber to their home, but that's ultimate, but it's just not going to happen very quickly. According to the United Nations, Africa, as many people may be aware, is exploding in population, especially younger age people. So 70% of sub-Saharan Africa is under 30 years old. And the connectivity, primary use is with phones, and it's growing rapidly, still rapidly. I thought this interesting because not only is the mobile a primary device of connection, but by a factor of 3 to 1 to laptops, desktops, but the tablets only have a minuscule portion of this market. I would offer that infers that this is a low connectivity level for residences. If you're in a household, a tablet is really a convenient device to connect, versus via local Wi-Fi. But if you don't, then you've got your phone, and then laptops, desktops for a few, and for institutional use. Maybe explain that graph. The pandemic has really elevated the notion that this is an essential service, and this is verified here by the regional vice president of the African Internet Society branch, DeWitt Bekele. And it's well spoken. The highest growth rate of internet is in Africa, but of course that's from 1% to 30%. And that still leaves a huge numbers of people. 840 million people don't have reliable, affordable internet access. It's just intolerable, given the technology that we have today, and this is where we think LEO can come in. The other part, as I'd mentioned earlier, is not just expanding access and equity to digital service and content. It's also the potential for these technologies to increase community resilience against these extreme weather events, which are coming and they're not going to stop, and they're predicted to increase, which is very credible. These are all US images, but you could find these same kinds of phenomena anywhere in the world. Right now, Argentina is experiencing extreme heat. We've seen these kinds of storms everywhere, and flooding, fires, the rest of it. This is not only our future, this is our present. This is a list of billion-dollar disasters, and you can just see how extreme this is getting, how expensive it's getting. Climate change in Africa, despite its low contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, remains the most vulnerable continent. I mean, you talk about unfair, but this is why this is Bill McKibben, a noted climate activist, thinking that connecting libraries and community access hubs for resilience is a good idea, primarily because it's a way to compensate partially for these heavy effects, and it's actually a low-cost way to increase resilience in these communities. Our point, that's our last point, I'll turn to the speakers, is there are two elements of response to this climate disaster, climate crisis, and one is mitigation, of course, and reversal. These are large-scale actors that have to make the move here. The large countries, the financial institutions that are maintaining the current system that's pouring more carbon into the atmosphere. Last year, more carbon went into the atmosphere than any time before that. So we're not doing very well in mitigation. The other part of this, adaptation scales at any level, global to local to even household. And this is where we think that libraries have an opportunity to play a significant role at the community level. And communities, when things go wrong, that's who you turn to, is the people around you, physically around you, are the people that need your help, and you can provide help too. And libraries can play a key role in that. So to our speakers, we're very fortunate to have Larry, Nkem, and Verengai with us today to talk about connectivity in Africa, low Earth orbit, and the general background. Well, we'll let them introduce their particular focuses for today. I'm going to stop screen share there and turn that over to Larry Press. Larry, thank you for joining us. I'm going to.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, let me share my screen then. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Wait a minute. 1 second. Here's the little guy. All right, there it is, full screen. Okay, guys, I'm going to talk on, this is the topic, is LEO, and I'm going to be stressing there not only LEO satellites, but fixed connectivity. And here's a quick outline. I'll try to run through this all fast, and we can have time for a discussion afterwards if it's too fast.
Hey, Larry, I failed to introduce you properly, and for all of our speakers, please, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Oh, okay. I thought you introduced me just fine. I'm Larry Press, and longtime interest in the internet in developing nations. And I'm retired now. I'm going to quit teaching, an emeritus professor of information systems. Is that enough?
Welcome.
All right. So here's what I'm going to run through real quickly. And let's start out with the state of the internet in Africa. Oops, that's not right. How can I back up? Can I? No, shit. Is there a way to, I have to get out of screen sharing to back this thing up?
Be able to use your
left arrow? Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay. I was using the mouse, not the arrows. All right. Just background. This is no surprise to anybody. Showing the percentage of individuals using the internet in Africa is lower than the other regions. Also, if you see on the right there, it's obviously low income regions don't use the internet very much. The little red dots are kind of cool. Those show you the percentage of young people using the internet. And again, Africa trails, and that's not a good sign. As Don pointed out, there's an awful lot of that use is mobile. There's a heavy reliance on mobile connectivity. And as you can see here, the predominant mobile infrastructure is still 3G, greater than 50%. And 5G is barely taking off. So there is mobile infrastructure, but even that is kind of lagging. And this is in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, this is just, if you go back to the title, I stress that I'm going to talk about fixed connectivity, and wanted, again, I think Don kind of really got at this. Fixed connectivity and mobile connectivity are two different animals. And here's an example that kind of really illustrates that point. The average, this is 2021, so it's probably gone up somewhat, but the point's the same. In sub-Saharan Africa, the average mobile data consumption was 2.9 gig per month. And the second bullet there is talking about an internet service provider called POA, and they provide home connectivity at 4 megabits per second. And their average usage is over 200 gigabytes per month. So obviously people do different things, and they do a lot more when they've got a fixed connection, in this case, in their home. Kind of along the same lines, different applications. You do different things when you're holding a cell phone than when you're working in a laptop. You mainly at phones, people do social media, they do kind of interactions, that kind of thing, but they're not creating content. For example, I would hate to have created this presentation on my phone. I couldn't have done it, obviously. So that's why I'm thinking of fixed access more than mobile. We saw in the slide back that mobile infrastructure in Africa is kind of behind what the rest of the world's up to. I'm on a 5G connection, and I'm sure if I'm using my phone, and so are many other people. And the same goes for fiber infrastructure. This is kind of a cool graph that it shows the share of the population living within 25 kilometers of an operational fiber optic network node in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is 2021, so it's probably gone up. I'm sure it's gone up since then, but it's only 57%. So this says that it's hard to reach rural Africa and the great parts of Africa with fiber. And the growth rate looks like it's declining a little bit on this graph as well. And this is where satellites come in. They have an advantage in that they're able to reach these difficult rural and para-urban areas. I learned the word para-urban while preparing these slides. Maybe everybody knew it, but not me. But it refers to like the suburbs, I guess, or the small towns around an urban area. Which I think Don sent me an Economist article, maybe sent to you guys, showing that this para-urban population is really growing in Africa. Anyhow, so that's for infrastructure. So now let's talk about the second part, satellites. I think Don said at the start, but we can think of kind of two rough groups of satellites: low Earth orbit satellites and geostationary satellites. Geostationary satellites, as you can see here, are already serving Africa and have been for quite a while. You can see the number of services available in each country there on the right. And they have high capacity, and they're okay for some applications. For example, to watch movies, to stream movies, or to download documents. The reason that works, they're high up in their orbits, and so they're a great distance away from the user, and that makes them okay for something like, say, streaming a movie. If you're streaming a movie, that first packet, the first little bit of the movie maybe takes half a second to get to you. You don't care because the second packet is right behind it, and so things can seem kind of smooth. But it doesn't work when you've got that far distant, slow response time for something like what we're doing now in interactive application or surfing the web, where you have many things go up, things come down, back and forth rapidly. So that's where these low Earth orbit, the ones that orbit closer to the Earth, where they come in. So here's the sort of where we are with the low Earth orbit broadband providers. There are 5. I'm not going to go through these, tediously, but just kind of try to differentiate amongst them. The elephant in the room is SpaceX with their Starlink constellation. You can see they are very much in the home market. They're residential, also mobile, serving organizations. They also have played a really important role in Ukraine in the war, both with regard to maintaining military and civilian infrastructure. And they have a huge lead in launch. They just know how to launch satellites way better than anybody else. We can talk more about that if you want. And they already have 1 million customers, so they are up and running and selling their service. The others are not elephants in the room, but they are they're making substantial efforts, and they all have something going for them. So for example, the second one is Telesat and OneWeb. And Eutelsat, I guess, is an established French geostationary provider, and they have now acquired OneWeb, which is a low Earth orbit provider. They're not going to do home applications there, but they are going to focus on mobile serving organizations. And a really important niche for them, and they're really going after this, is multi-orbit, where a user can be kind of seamlessly using both the low Earth orbit and the geostationary satellites, and as appropriate, going back and forth automatically between the two. The next one I list there, these are in no particular order. Telesat is a Canadian company. They also have, they actually are also a geostationary provider. So they have the possibility of doing multi-orbit. I talked to them, though, about a year ago, and they said they weren't planning to, but I'm not sure that if I were them, I would. Let's put it that way. And they're not doing home internet. They're going to do mobile and organizations. And they have been delayed. They've had trouble with supply chain problems, a little trouble raising capital. I'd say they're the shakiest financially on the list. Next is Amazon's Project Kuiper. They're going to do home mobile organizations, and they have a big advantage in that Amazon has complementary, their cloud infrastructure, all their data centers and stuff. And they also have ground stations as service. These satellites have to link to something on the ground. And it turns out that Amazon, which is from the start been an infrastructure company, they have a service where you can, if you have a satellite, you can use their ground station as a service. And the final one is super interesting, China SatNet. I'm not sure if it's kind of inscrutable. I don't know if they're going after the home market or which of these markets, but my guess would be all of them. Their constellation is second in size, second number of satellites to what SpaceX has proposed. They're behind the others. They got off to a late start. They had a couple of two small starts that finally got folded into this state-owned China SatNet thing. But the most interesting thing about them is that they will have access, presumably, or a foot up politically and technically to digital Silk Road countries. And here's just kind of a slide showing the extent of the data centers and facilities and investments that China is making in Africa. And I think that will give them some leverage when they finally get it together. For China SatNet. These pictures were from 2019, so they need to be updated, but you guys get the idea, and I'm sure you're really familiar with what China is doing on the continent. Okie doke. This is kind of low Earth orbit broadband is right now coming to Africa. But like it says in parentheses there, it's kind of expensive. Starlink is right now, today, as of, 3 weeks ago, available in Nigeria and Rwanda. They will be in the countries I've listed there this quarter, by the end of the quarter. And by the end of next year, much of African continent will have access to SpaceX's Starlink service. OneWeb is just about to launch the last batch of their first constellation. And they've been they've got demonstrations and tests going all over the place already. And I think by next year, they will be say early next year, the first, kind of fully online competitor to SpaceX. So it's come to Africa, but as you can see there, the price so far, we've got prices in Nigeria, and you can see that it's expensive. And the prices in Rwanda that have been announced already are essentially the same. And also note at this time, they're only selling their kind of low-end residential kind of service, but I'm sure the others will follow. Okie doke. So that's expensive. So that means that high cost means that sharing is required. And it can be shared, as Don was saying, in libraries, in telecenters, clinics, schools, all that kind of that's what I meant by kind of organization sharing, as well as businesses, of course. The picture there I show is kind of cool. We've kind of been through this before. That's a picture of the very first telecenter. It was in Lima, Peru, back in the very early days of the internet. Anyhow, there was a lot of telecenters spread at that time. And in countries like Cuba or something, they're still pretty important. Anyhow, so that's sharing in organizations, and I'm going to say nothing about that because that's what our other speakers are going to address. So let me instead talk about sharing at home. And I'm going to use, I mentioned before, POA Internet, their experience with home computing, home connectivity as opposed to mobile. And they have also talk about their home program. And let me just, that last bullet point, they're not the only one. I know of at least two others. This is what they do. They share high-speed connections among several homes in a community. This is their cost is $11.64. That's at the exchange rate yesterday or something. And there's a $27 installation fee. And they have 20,000 customers. And the service they offer is unlimited connectivity, unlimited fixed connectivity. But you notice it's 4 megabits. That should be a little b, 4 megabits per second. And so you say, whoa, what can you do with 4 megabits per second? I've got at my home, I think I got a service that gives me 300 megabits per second. A lot of people have gigabit service. 4 sounds really small, but if you put it in perspective, on the left, you can see that picture of a teletype machine. That was my first home internet terminal, and it ran 10 characters, 10 uppercase characters per second. And the machine on the right, I was talking with Don, he had one at the same era. That's my first computer that was connected to the internet. And I had a connection there that was a blazing 300 bits per second. You can see it's got the dual floppies and whatnot. So obviously, a low-cost computer today can do an awful lot more. And yet, I did amazing things with those two machines. The one on the left just opened my eyes, and the one on the right, it enabled me to quit my day job. And because I could own my own tools and I could work as a programmer and a consultant and a writer and so forth. So you don't, what you can do today is infinitely more with a very low cost computer. Okay, how does POA work? I'm getting, this will be the end almost. What they have is a data center in Nairobi, and then they run fiber loops to neighborhoods in that the neighborhoods around Nairobi. And there they set up a wireless point-to-point and point-to-multipoint wireless distribution to actually reach the homes.
Because I send an email.
I hear somebody else that 400, low rate, that 4 megabits per second. Okay, so that's what they're doing today. I think just one little factoid to throw in. What they are doing to sort of offer in 4 megabits per second, they provision 1.5 megabits for each home, and they're assuming that they'll I guess they can almost always deliver the 4, but obviously it might not work at a high. It might slow down at a high contention time. So that's what Pro is doing today, and I think this is the last one. That is what we're here today to talk about. Is this going to be possible tomorrow? And there are many factors to see whether it's certainly possible, but whether they can substitute a satellite, low Earth orbit satellite for that fiber link remains, and whether they can do it economically. There's so many factors. I'm not going to say yes or no, but we can speculate and we can consider the factors that go into answering that question. And that's it. Here's a couple of things, little short things I've written that you could click on if you want more detail on this. And also, if you want the presentation, you can download it. I just uploaded it to Google Drive. And last but not least, I'm happy to hear from any of you. That's my email address. And that's it. Thank you.
Excellent, Larry. Please post those links in the chat, would you? So people can have them. So we can stop your screen share there now. Great overview of connectivity, Africa. Maybe Stephen, you can do that. Thank you. Well, not yet.
I'm going to stop sharing.
There you go. Way to go. Thanks. So a lot of great points you made there, Larry. Besides the fact that you and I are old timers, you could have skipped that point, but nevertheless, it shows an evolution of technology that is accelerating, which is kind of mind-boggling at the rate that things are changing, and a good description of terrestrial versus extraterrestrial. I hadn't thought about it that way. Connectivity and how it may resolve some of these challenges because the distances are so great and affordability challenges are great. And so you made the key points about shared access and how that is a partial answer. And our view is that will help generate demand, and demand will cause terrestrial infrastructure, which we prefer. We all want fiber to the home, or as close as we can get to extend. And so over time, I think it will make a big difference. The great thing is you can reach the farthest, most unconnected remote place today with this technology, assuming the country has given permission to the operators, notably, as you say, this elephant in the room, Starlink. So now we're going to hear from two people who are familiar with specific projects in the two countries that you mentioned, Nigeria and Rwanda, which are the only two so far in Africa that granted Starlink permission to operate. So with us, we have Nkem from the African Federation of Library Associations, who helped set up this project. Nkem, are you there? You're there, Nkem.
Yes, I'm here. But permit me not to put on my video because of, again, internet challenges, please.
Well, we understand. So,
Yeah.
okay, fine. Well, at least we can make your name more prominent. Tell us about yourself, Nkem, and then tell us about the Nigeria project as it exists today. Let me just say, first of all, that these projects are not yet fulfilled. They are granted, but not yet fulfilled. So what we're trying to do today is hear about these projects and the expectations and plans that have gone into it, so that we can then later return to these and hear how they actually have gone. So Nkem, welcome.
Thank you very much, Don. So I am Nkem Osuigwe. I'm a Nigerian. I work for African Library and Information Associations and institutions based in Accra, Ghana. But most often I work from home, and I know what it is to want to have a meeting or want to do something online and you're stuck, you can't do anything. So that's just for an introduction. I was also head of a public library system here in Nigeria before I joined AfLIA. Now, Don had started this exchange, this thing about Starlink, Leo libraries, he talked about it. Then all of a sudden, hey, they are coming to Nigeria, and we got quite excited. We are still excited, even though the project has not really taken off in the 5 libraries approved as we would have wanted it to by now. But like I said, now 5 libraries got the grant, so to speak, of having Starlink in their libraries free for 24 months. There'll be free internet in the 5 libraries, 1 in Lagos, 3 in Abuja, and then 1 in Kaduna. So we are still waiting for that to happen as was promised. And but already we've gotten this agreement with the library and Starlink, and we're also working to see how we can collect data now, to know what exists now, the kind of internet services that they use, the speed, challenges, and so on, so that when this one comes now, we can now also get data from it to know what changed and what Starlink was able to help them do. But as I was thinking about this today, one thing that came to my mind, I asked myself, why libraries? Why libraries? And Larry had said something about it too, that a place where people can share internet because it's free or is cheaper. But beyond that, I had a personal experience when I was far, far, far younger. In Nigeria in the late 60s, we had this civil war, and my part of the country, we lost the war. So it took a long time to build up the place again. And in doing that, people were, poverty was there and other things. And I remember once my mom wanted to go somewhere, and she needed to keep me in a place where she felt I'll be safe. And that was my first time of entering the library in Enugu State then. And why I'm telling this story is why libraries. There's this kind of acceptance that you see in public libraries all over the world, and it's the same in Nigeria. And that is one of the reasons why Starlink actually should be in libraries, because the internet, it won't just be for, let's say, people that want to come and read, or people that use the place often. But it being in libraries, it shows that kind of openness, that kind of anyone can use this, that kind of this thing is accessible to everyone, especially our young people, because Nigeria is we have a definite youth bulge. There are young people. We have more people, let's say, between 35 years to 20 years or 18 years. That's where we have more people. And when you look at the level of unemployment, when you look at facilities available for these young people, you now understand that with Starlink in libraries, these young people can see a place that accepts them the way they are, whatever that they are up to. whatever that they want to learn, whatever that they want to find out about, opportunities, whether it's for schools or for health purposes or for to access government information. So I think that acceptance thing, that's seeing the library as a place where everyone is accepted, maybe is one of the reasons why Starlink agreed to give 5 libraries in Nigeria 24 months free internet. But again, we look at all this and we think, what other opportunities can people have if there's free internet in a library that they can easily go into? You know, it's yes, it's free, it's fast, it's reliable. It's not just what you have in your phones, because here in Nigeria we use our phones more often for internet. We use our phones for everything. You know, Larry said something about creating content, you know, that how it can, you know, impede you and you won't be able to create content, that laptops are really better. That is true. But when you're in a situation where your phone is the only thing you have, you find out that you have to try everything that, you know, to see how you can do it. But with libraries, that opportunity to use laptops, desktops exists. And when you now see that really that many people, let's say between 90 to 95% of the young people that come in, they do not have their own laptops. You see that again, libraries will provide, or not will, they provide those opportunities for these people to create content that they could not have done on their phones, especially when there's free internet, fast internet, and so on. So that, again, is another reason why we are looking at that. And we are really hopeful that in no distant time that it will come to be. And we want to see how will it change perceptions, not just about libraries, but about learning more, you know, because everybody can go to school and you get a certificate, but is that the end of it? So we are looking at the possibility of these young people exploring more when they go to libraries and there's that free, fast internet, to add to the things that they already know so that they can have more opportunities to get jobs, to create content, to make a living for themselves. Of course, we are also looking at the possibilities of these challenges of light, power, you know. What if there's free, fast internet and there's no light to power the devices? What happens? How do we work around it? So we are looking at that so that when this Starlink thing gets operational, we hope that we can use it to advocate to authorities to please, since this thing is free and is fast and it can help young people in this way and that way, that please, that light should not be a challenge in this libraries. Then we're also looking at the possibilities of upskilling the people that work in these libraries. Because if the internet is there, like I said, fast, free, and somebody comes in but doesn't know what to do with it, what happens next? I mean, the person will say, okay, it was there, but what did you do with it? So we are looking at how do we upskill these librarians and other workers there to know the things. How do you teach your user communities? What can they do with the internet? How do you use it in a responsive and a responsible manner? You know, because if they do not know how to do it in a responsible way, they could get into problems or they could create difficulties for others. And then also to know when you are at this stage that you can do this or the other one, but you need more skills in order to create content, and in creating content, mind this ethics, how you do this or how you do that. So those are the things that we are looking at. Then again, we have looked at this question of affordability, and we are asking, can libraries really afford to pay $600? Okay, after the installation for these 5 libraries and free internet for 24 months, the equipment will be there. So the installation is not for them, but for other libraries. Would they be able to afford that $600? Now, in Nigeria, we have this exchange rate issue, because there's an official rate, and then there's which is difficult to access, and then there's one that you can access easily. And today I asked a question about this. I asked somebody, how much is $600? If I want to, let's say I want to buy it for me to pay for this Starlink, how much is it? And it's close to 450,000 naira. Now, 450,000 naira, somebody may say is not much, but you know, in a country where the minimum wage is 30,000 naira, you see that it's difficult to cope with, and then the monthly thing. So we are looking forward to this. We are aware of the opportunities that it will give us, and we are also trying to see how we can cope with the challenges that we know that we are going to face. Thank you, Don. I'm done, Don. Thank you.
Thank you, Nkem. Wow, you've touched on so many powerful points here. I like the ability for the library to show the value of a desktop or a laptop computer compared to the use of the phone. Larry made the point, but how do you know that? People just tell you, and you need to experience. This is what libraries have done, is give this hands-on experience to things. There's a bunch of other things you touched on. I'd like to hope we can get back to it, but we need to turn to Verengai now. And tell us, Verengai, welcome. Tell us about yourself, and of course, what you've learned about the Rwanda project, which is compared to Nigeria, where Starlink has donated 5 enterprise business class systems to libraries, but they've yet to deliver those because they haven't really set up that particular service yet. In Rwanda, I think it's different for the schools. Maybe anyway, we'll learn about that. But just to say that the enterprise system is much more expensive than the consumer system, but it's, it provides more bits per second. But how relevant is that when you're starting from, 4 or none? It remains to be seen. But welcome, Verengai. Tell us what's happening in Rwanda, what you can share with us.
Great. Thank you, Don, and greetings again, colleagues. I hope you can hear me clearly. Please confirm. I'm also worried about the internet connectivity that my colleague from Nigeria mentioned, but I'm confident I'll finish this quick talk without any disturbances. So firstly, quickly, my name is Verengai Mabika, and I'm working with Internet Society as Senior Policy Advisor for the Africa region. I do work very closely with our engagement team to maintain relationships with governments and also do policy advocacy around the issues that we are working on. I would say quickly, as ISOC, we are very much interested in LEOS from the perspective that this actually provides an opportunity for low latency, high-speed connections, and we believe that it could be a game changer for the number of issues that my colleagues mentioned before. Larry, I think you mentioned quite a lot of some of the use cases: community centers, libraries, and even in individual. So getting quickly, because I'm also looking at the time, getting quickly to the situation in Rwanda. So quickly, just some quick highlights. Rwanda is an East African country with a population of about 13.5 million people. it's actually quite recorded as a very a leader in innovation and technology. I would say in the region, it's actually respected for that. And the president and the government has been doing quite a lot of innovative things to improve the economic situation, the economic outlook of the country. So when it comes to internet, Rwanda is just the internet penetration in Rwanda is just 23%. Well, I think for this year, the estimates for this year, it's actually 26%. So you can tell that this is actually very, very low. 26%, I think it's quite low for a population of 13 million people. So I assume that the Starlink project, while it's initially targeting schools, I think the intention for the government is also to make sure that it can actually go to the places where internet is currently not available. So just to share with you that with regards to, I think it was reported in a few weeks back that Starlink has started operations in Rwanda. So firstly, the government of Rwanda had an initial idea to connect schools, firstly with using SpaceX Starlink connectivity. So there are about 6,700 schools in Rwanda, and the government is aiming to connect about 3,000 schools by the end of 2024. So this is a very ambitious goal, as you can see. In fact, some news that I read around, the government has actually secured some funding for this. So about $30 million is coming from China Exim Bank, and the other remaining balance is also coming from a World Bank development project. So the last year, the Rwanda Space Agency, they actually do have a very active space agency, signed an MOU with the Global Satellite Operators Association to explore ways of improving rural connectivity and accelerate digital inclusion. So this was one of the biggest policy changes that actually enabled Starlink to get into the space. I think you would notice that I think Larry also mentioned this, that some policy challenges in a greater part of Africa makes it very difficult for LEO players to get into countries, but this MOU actually enabled Rwanda to do that. So SpaceX, from the initial plan which they announced, they are going to be piloting a connectivity to 500 schools, and this is beginning the end of March. So I would say, on the ground, we haven't had any work going on yet. I think they are still doing the administrative work for that. I would say for an agreement that was signed on the 22nd of February, I think it's fairly early to say we should expect to see anything reasonable on the ground. But this is the plan. They plan to connect 500 schools in the first year. So because they are going to be connecting schools, I think the idea of libraries here naturally comes in. Almost all of the schools, they've got libraries. But like I mentioned, because of the internet penetration rate, I suspect that the idea is also to then encourage communities around those schools to also come and use the services. What I'm not sure yet now is if they are going to be allowing sharing of that internet connectivity. And maybe quickly, just to mention another important aspect, which is the cost. I think this is important. So initially, the initial costs, again, the hardware cost is getting to around $599. I've tried to do the exchange, and then a non-refundable amount of $100 and a monthly fee of US $43. So this is the more or less the kind of cost that we're seeing in Nigeria. So I'm not sure if this package is going to apply also to institutions, and if they're going to be likely, allowing people to share this. Let me pause there because I'm looking at the time, and probably we may want to get into some kind of discussion. Back to you.
Verengai, thank you. You've led us right into the heart of the discussion, I think, which is affordability and availability. So from what we understand, the stratification of the services, you've got this consumer level or residential service, and you have this enterprise business service, which is substantially more expensive, as is the hardware at that $2,500 for this enterprise level service. But there's no prohibition on sharing. There's only a prohibition on reselling. So the consumer or the residential service at 50, 100 megabits, 150 megabits, it's variable depending on how many people are trying to share it, which in Africa, there's nobody trying to share it so far. So it should perform very well. And so there's, as I say, if there's no resale involved, then there's no prohibition on sharing. So this enables libraries or schools or community centers or anyone to extend the use of it as far as it will go. There's a question about whether or not you can connect a wide area network to this, but I think it's the same principle. If you're not reselling it, then it's just more people using it. They do have a 1 terabyte threshold on data use per subscription. Well, that's quite a lot. I think the average in the US right now is for a household is much less than that per month. And even then, it's not a throttle like with your cell phone. You hit your data cap and they send you down to, just a few megabits or a few bits almost per second until the next month. This is not that. What it means is you're deprioritized. If there's contention, if there are more people, trying to access it, then you have a lower priority. But if they're not, then you're just operating, you don't even know about it. So it's very different than throttling, and it should not impact usage, certainly in the first couple of years at least. So the question is then the cost of the hardware, the $600 purchase, as you say, non-refundable, and then the ongoing monthly for the residential level service, which should be adequate for most of these small enterprises at under $50 US a month. So we're hoping that communities can pool their resources to come up with that. It seems reasonable as a price for a whole community, or even if it's just their center is being served. It's not just connectivity for individuals, just that this important institution has more capability to it. So that seems like a combination to really proliferate, and that's what we're trying to find out, right? We don't know what the impact is going to be, and so trying it out is just really a good way to find out what's the impact on the wider community. What are the other issues related to? I mean, you said that 500 is a large number, or 1,000 is a large number to implement in a short amount of time. That's absolutely true for terrestrial infrastructure, because you have to, run wires and build towers and stuff. But with this stuff, you just mail out a box. You just mail it out and you plug it in, set it up, you're live. So that's the easy part. The more challenging part is then what else is needed? Do you need more devices? Do you need people that have more knowledge about how to use it and how to train people how to use it? So those are the kind of things which may be challenging to scale as compared to the actual connectivity portion of it. So it's a disconnect where we've experienced this all in the past, and it's really fascinating to see how it's going to unfold and how it may make a difference across Africa. I appreciated your estimation, both from you and Larry, that this will be adopted more quickly. Do you have any sense that the African Union is involved? You mentioned the Exim Bank of China and the World Bank financing these projects. Do you have a sense the African Union has any kind of a stake in this? Have you had any interaction with them? Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Don. No, not at the moment. I just know that there are some discussions ongoing around LEO. Companies are coming into Africa, and quite a number of governments, also individual governments, are looking forward to all the announcements that are being made. But policy making, regulation is normally very slow in Africa. It normally starts from the African Union point of view and then scale down to the country level. And if we don't have anything at this point, it's most likely that only the individual countries that are more open-minded are the ones that will catch up the early benefits, like Rwanda and probably Nigeria. They've made some policy inroads for that.
Right. It is a national prerogative to grant this permission. That's absolutely true. And it is a slow process to go through all those and these leading countries like Nigeria, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa tend to be the ones that kind of set the pace for various kinds of regulations around telecommunications. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this all rolls out. Nkem, you mentioned what you thought the impact would be on young people and how you thought they might be. What did you say about that? Nkem, do you recall?
Yes. You see, we place quite a lot of emphasis on the certificates we get when we go to school. You finish this grade, you get a certificate, you do this one, you get a certificate. But sometimes at the end of it, it's as if learning stops. It's as if some of the things that I even learned in school, are not really the practical things, so to speak. But libraries with internet that is fast and free, or cheap, quite cheap, can help people to continue learning, especially these young people that have the future right there in front of them. Because they can't just rely on the only thing, all those things that they learned in school. Let's stop there. We are now ready for the world. We are now ready to do all things. No. We feel that libraries should help them to learn more. And because knowledge has migrated to online spaces, the internet can help them where it is available, where it is stable, where it is fast, where it is cheap, if not free, help them to continue to learn. Then also this idea, you see, you had talked about YouTube when you were starting. Remember, Don? You said something about the number of things that go there every day. People are creating content, and young people are very good at that, better than older people like us. And this availability of internet in libraries can help them try out things that maybe when they now go home, they can now say, let me do this or do that. So, the world is, it has just gone beyond what you learn in school. It won't be enough for you to meet the challenges in today's world or excel as a young people. They need more. And the internet can help them to get all that.
Wonderful.
That was what you asked, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I recall and more. I think that's a marvelous observation to close this session with is the opportunities that the internet at a community site can offer to so many people. Your point about learning beyond school, lifelong learning is a common term we use for that, is right on. And libraries uniquely offer these kinds of learning environments for anybody about anything. And these life skills are really what gets us through it. We're a little bit over, but this is not a TV show, so we don't have a hard stop. But then I'd like to go back to Larry for a final comment, and then Verengai, we're going to let you have also a final comment. So Larry, thanks. Something you'd like to add at the close here?
I guess one thing that comes to mind, one, it's been really interesting hearing about the two projects, and I want to hear more. I want to learn more. Well, but cost has come up a number of times, and this is a real moving target. Like the $600 terminal, that the price of that will go down. There's competition coming. Amazon has just the other day announced the description of the 3 terminals they're going to be selling, and with competition. And with technical progress especially on the terminal side, those prices will come down. So the economics today are not necessarily the economics tomorrow. I think the final thing I'd say is what Don brings up: constraints, contractual constraints, difficulties with both the government, local governments, and also working out terms with the providers. Like if for that home, the picture I painted of what POA is doing, for example, of going substituting satellite link for their own fiber link. Right now, SpaceX would ostensibly not allow that. That would have to be negotiated to let the community network serve what they were getting from POA. And if SpaceX won't do it, the others, Amazon might do it, OneWeb might do it. They're more focused on that sort of not to individuals distribution. So everything's changing. It's hard to say how it's going to shake out.
It's a great point, Larry, that there's a lot to learn, a lot to unfold. And we'll be looking forward to competition in this particular space.
Totally.
To drive innovation and price as well. So, Verengai, final word for us today.
Yes, thank you, Don. And I think this was an interesting discussion. Maybe two points that I wanted just to mention. I've had informal discussions with some of the regulators or the policymakers, and one issue they mentioned is competition. I think Larry mentioned that as well. You would notice that in most African countries, there are 2 or 3 big telco companies, and one is associated with the government. So they are also looking at, the potential to lose income and maybe market share because of the competition that will come with these new options. And then, of course, capacity. I think we also need to start thinking seriously about capacity, support, technical support for all these emerging technologies, because most of our universities, I think there are just a few, or even companies that are getting into training, technical support, and things like that. So I think these are 2 points that we need to keep on the agenda as we discuss the issue forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you so much. Good points again, all. And we will, in fact, return to this conversation. This is kind of the opening entry into this particular subject for Africa, which is so exciting. So we'll hope you all can come back and we can reassess this in maybe 2-3 months and see what has transpired and what our expectations are matching reality at that point. So with that, I think we will close the session and end the recording. Come back next time.
Recording stopped.